Okay, I wanted to share some simple blues tips with you. I really like playing blues. I play quite a lot of it just at home and here in the studio. And I wanted to just share a really simple concept with you. Blues is generally based around E, A and B. That's the sort of classic blues progression. You can combine those three chords in pretty much any order and any timing and they'll sound great. But here's where the fun begins. You can bounce around with those chords in pretty much any pattern that you want. And if you overlay at any time the notes from the E blues scale or the E minor pentatonic scale in its open position, it will sound great. If you don't know scales, that might sound a bit confusing and weird, but just follow this pattern for me, okay? So, top string, I'm going to play two notes on each string, okay? So, and I'm going to play each string open. It's a really simple pattern. I'm going to show you very quickly. Okay, that's the E blues scale. You can play any of those notes at any time with the E, A and B chords and it's going to sound great. There's no real rules here. I want you to develop a sense of musicality, but I'm going to give you some specific stuff you can hang your hat on. Okay, when we play E, A and B pattern, however we want to play it, you don't have to play all the strings or all of the chord. It's okay to just play parts of that chord. So for example, for an E chord, I've got, obviously my electric guitar here at the moment. I'm going to just choose to target the top half of an E major chord. Okay, so you might know E major. There we go. Yeah? But I'm just going to play the first three strings. So actually, I can just hold an E minor because I'm only going to play the top three strings. So it doesn't matter what's happening after that. I'm only going to play the top three. Listen to the difference. Okay, if I just play those two there, but I'm only playing the top three strings, remember? I can actually just use that whole finger if I want, because I'm not playing strings 1, 2 and 3. This is really important because it makes the technique easier for adding lead. Let me show you an example of what this looks like in full motion. I'm going to switch to an A chord. I'm literally just picking out any note there. There's no great thought behind it. The rhythm wasn't quite great. But what I wanted you to hear was how, I was just doing all of that with one finger to try and make it clear for you to see that these chords and these notes work together however we combine them. Let's look at something that's a little bit more structured so you can practice this clearly. If we're going to play an EAB progression, it will go something like this. Yeah, it's like a classic, 12-bar pattern. And we're going to play that for a while, then we're going to drop down to A. And then we're going to go back to the E. Then we're going to go to B. I'm going to choose to play B7 because it's easier. A. To the E. So real lazy, slow, shuffly kind of chord progression. But that's just our foundation. Yeah, we can go crazy on top of that with any notes that we want from the E blues scale. So then this, if we want to, could just become, yeah, all those notes that we looked at there. They're going to sound great with that E. So let's look at some ways we can combine that. We can touch on the G before we go to the A. And on the way back. to the B. And then we're going to drop down here. So we can use whatever notes we want in whatever order we want, as long as we hit the first beat of each of the A, the E, A and B, then we can do whatever we want with the notes, because the chord pattern will give us a foundation, and then we can go off that foundation and go off piste and do lead based stuff on top of that. I hope that makes sense. What I wanted to do here was give you a kind of some tips that will kind of push you in the direction where you can explore your own musical patterns and develop your own musicality. If you want to take this to the next level, you know, so you know, maybe you're more of an intermediate player and you're looking for something that's a little bit more challenging, then as well as playing this scale down here at the bottom, yeah, you can also play an octave higher up, which sounds great. So remember, all the notes begin again on the 12th fret. So that pattern we played down there, we can also play here. So in that case, it would look like this. Yeah? So if we get a nice pattern happening down at this end, we can just repeat it an octave higher, and it will always sound nice on the ear because it's the same pattern, but an octave higher. So it just resolves quite well. So anything we play down here is always going to sound cool up here as well, because they're the same notes. Also remember, just a nice one to have up your sleeve, is that we can play the top, these two notes here, and the next two, and the next two, whenever we play in E. And they'll always sound great. So that gives us a nice midway point on the fretboard that works well. So we could play something like this. So imagine we moved off the E, and we moved to the A. Add a little something, so we could spin up to here. I'm trying to do it with 2 fingers so you can see. All I'm doing there is playing this note, this note, this note, this note, that note and that note in any order, and it will sound okay as long as we're playing in E. Really starts to come alive is when you start using a bit of this, a bit of that, and then a bit of that up there, because then you get a much broader musical range going on. So there's 3 patterns that we've gone through here that'll be really useful for you to know. One is the E minor pentatonic scale down here. That same pattern an octave higher. And then those 3 notes just in the middle of the fretboard on the 5th and 7th fret. So if you're playing anything in E, A and B, you can bounce around between those patterns. It's so much fun. You know, you could just spend a lifetime as a guitarist exploring what I've shown you in this video, because there's so much to it. There's a billion ways that you could combine those chords and those notes in so many different rhythms. So I hope you found this useful. You know, this is the kind of stuff that I do when I'm just playing around at home, you know. It wasn't a very structured lesson. This was more about giving you some tools that you can then take away and play around with yourself. This stuff sounds much better on an electric guitar with a little bit of gain on the amp. You don't want to go crazy with the distortion, but it's nice to have a little bit of drive there. But absolutely you can do this stuff on acoustic guitar as well. That's pretty much all I play at home, actually, is my acoustic guitar. I just happen to be showing it with the electric because I thought it'd be a bit of a change for you to hear that more of a driven tone, because I tend to do most of these videos acoustically. Anyway, go and have fun, explore this stuff. It works in rock and blues, and yeah, it's tons of fun. So I hope you found this useful, and I'll catch up with you soon.